to see you, my friend.
So very good seeing you.
Where are you broadcasting from? Are you broadcasting from the western part of the state of Washington?
I'm in Oregon this evening.
You're in Oregon. Okay. So are you living in Oregon? I knew you were going to be moving to be closer to like Vancouver or something, but
Yes,
you actually live in Oregon. Okay.
yes, yeah. I go back and forth, but I'm more in Oregon.
Yeah.
Oregon is just our Vancouver campus is just 15, 20 minutes drive to Portland.
Yeah, very good. Very good. Well, thank you again for joining us. I know you're a busy, very busy guy. And, the question is, what haven't you done a meta-analysis on in the last 20 years, right? I mean, you've done so many that have tackled some of the important, interventions in the field of educational psychology. But if I can draw your, is he still with us?
Yes,
Um,
I do.
Oh,
Uh,
okay, okay. You moved to a different box. Sorry. If I can sort of have you recall the meta-analysis you did on the testing effect and retrieval practice, and that was about 10 years ago. We are studying the testing effect in this class, and we had some readings about how it works and some of the studies or whatever. But let me ask you first, what drew you to wanting to do a meta-analysis on the testing effect, or was this a grad student's idea?
Thank you so very much, Dan. Well, I want to say good evening. I'm so sorry I couldn't be here earlier because I'm on the school run today. My son is in high school and I needed to pick him up. I think being a dad is great. I would say greater than being a scholar. So that's why I needed to do that first. But coming back to Dan's question, and I will come back to say a few things about Dan and how he has inspired me significantly in my career. But it was not a grad school idea. I started as a faculty, um, was an assistant professor, then became an associate professor. I started reading a lot of literatures around testing and how tests are used in this country and around the world. And, with the literature and practice testing effect, I felt like we needed to do things differently. So my philosophy of conducting meta-analysis, I like to go into areas that are very, very hotly debated, contentious, something that I don't like to do meta-analysis on the obvious. If we already know why do I want to do a meta-analysis on it, I want to go into areas like cognitive benefits of bilingualism, is being bilingual important, how do we learn alternative ways to learning rather than from text, which is the dominant way of learning. So that drew me into testing all the debates post 2001, No Child Left Behind Act. So I began to study testing the literature. Then I found out that Kapiki and Rodiger did just a narrative review, but it just did not touch on key moderators. So, which is what meta-analysis are very good for. So, I called a graduate student. I got a faculty funding, internal faculty funding award, just $5,000, and then hire this graduate student hourly to start coding with me. Coding is a donkey job. It's not so much an attractive job. We started coding, working on it. Then it started gaining traction. People were beginning to ask us, wow, this is really important. I think I got additional funds to complete the project, and that was how we ended up with that paper. So it was more of a junior faculty type of idea, but then trying to contribute to the discourse and the debate around the use of testing in this country.
Yeah, and your meta-analysis is such a great approach like you said, you've tackled the more interesting items as opposed to the boring issues out there. And can you talk a little bit about how the technique of meta-analysis can really shed light on, the nuances of the testing effect and other things you've investigated that normal empirical studies probably would never find?
That's an interesting question, but Dan, I really do not. I have to say this to your students. I don't want us to run out of time. Um, and then I will get back to your question. I want to say thank you for being here today. The man that invited me today is my mentor. I mean, I may be a distinguished Boeing professor today, but I started as a graduate student and well, even started as undergrad. But in my grad school education, I would go to AERA conferences and I would see this man walk up to me. I was probably the only black person in the room in those days, black students in the room in those days. I'm talking of about 20, 24, 5 years ago. He would he paid so much attention. He just didn't walk by, and that struck a chord. I felt like he really cared about me. I probably would not have been in EDSAC today, not probably would not have been an accomplished scholar today, if not of people like Dan, who took extra care to look into the room and see someone and approach a graduate student and said hello many times. Could you talk to me about what you are doing? I'm here for you. And many of those sideway conversations that I had with Dan, I got to know him more up close. He was very much interested in my career. So, Dan, I did not tell you I would say this, but thank you. Thank you for everything that you have done for me. You have just been a champion, rooting for me, and just looking at how I have also stepped up the ladder. I have used your model of vicarious mentoring to inspire many other students in the field. But it came down to you. And of course to God. I want to say thank you, Dan.
That's very nice. I appreciate that, and you give me way too much credit. If I recall, the main reason why I spent time talking to you is that in a room of graduate students, you had focus, you had energy, you had interest, and I could see that in you that you really wanted to go places, you wanted to answer questions, and yeah, it's been great to see how your career has advanced and accelerated. And I've joked with you that you should have been a dean a long time ago, but being an associate dean is a lot better than being a dean because you still get to do research. You still get to work with colleagues, junior colleagues. You get
Right,
to work with graduate students. If we stole you and put you in a leadership position such as dean, provost, something like that, I have no doubt you would excel at that. But your real gift I see is your your love and just vigor for research and answering questions, clarifying things, getting to the truth. That's what I've always admired about you, my friend. So I want to give the students a chance to ask any questions they might have about the testing effect. Most of the students in this class are in the practitioner side of things. This is a master's level course. And I want to give them a chance to ask you a question. I think Taylor is up first. So Taylor, you can go ahead.
Hello. Um, so I wanted to ask because I teach first grade, and currently in Texas we have a number of different I guess you could say strategies that they use to test, as far as um whether it be standardized or just regular in-class testing. But when we're speaking about practice testing, right? Because we've been talking about post tests and quizzes this week. Practice tests in particular, do you feel like it is equally beneficial, or it can help struggling students just as well as regular students? Because what I'm finding is the tests that we take in first grade is map test, and it's a form of a standardized test. We take it 3 times a year. And what typically happens is our struggling students tend to do like okay, near almost near normal on the test. But then when we're in the classroom, it's not translating to what they can actually do in the real world, more so because the test is automated, it's on iPad, and it's read aloud to them, all these different things. But even if we're in a classroom setting and the same thing is taking place just in human form, they're not able to perform the same. So if somebody like me were to try to implement more practice testing with my first grade students, would it work for those students that are specifically struggling?
Thank you so very much, Taylor. Yes, in fact, that's the beauty. I will answer your question together with the question that Dan posed. That's what meta-analysis, why meta-analysis are very important. They not only speak to the main effect, they also speak to what we call the moderating effect, which is under what conditions would something work or not work, which is the really important thing that policymakers are interested in, teachers and practitioners are interested in. And that's why meta analysis are much more robust for dealing with those type of policy related questions than even empirical studies. In our meta analysis, we did find that regardless of the students, whether special ed students, disadvantaged students, general students, across the classroom and laboratories, across different subjects, domains, practice testing is effective. One thing, though, Taylor, that I would say is that we have got to bring our students into that space of comfort. They are almost always operating with, oh, I'm going to fail. Oh, somebody is testing me. Somebody is looking over my shoulder. Even if you are doing practice testing and we do not explain to them that, hey, forget about this. This is meant for you to learn. I just want to see where you are at so that I can know how best to support you. If we don't say that, students are constantly living in that fearful space that even though it might be a practice test, they don't see it that way. And we lose out on the benefits of practice testing if we do not very robustly explicate the goal of the test, that this is meant for practice, this is meant to help you engage with the material, help you assess and help me assess how much you have engaged with the material so that we can know how to proceed. I think explicating that very well to students uh, is, is key to the effects of practice testing.
Thank you, Shola.
Thank you.
Mary, you have a question.
I do. I read your meta-analysis, which was great, but I have a question about feedback because what I've noticed is that when you're talking about doing this type of testing, formative testing, you're talking about corrective feedback. And I always thought that corrective feedback was just not enough. Because if I don't understand the student's process or where the student kind of diverged in their thinking, then I'm not contributing to making a change. If I just say, this is wrong and this is what's correct, go back and study, that type of feedback leads nowhere. So why isn't there a difference in the type of feedback we do with this type of formative testing? And would it make a difference? That's my question. Thank you.
Thank you so very much, Mary. I totally agree with you. I think a type of feedback that not only tells students you are wrong or you are right, but that shows them step by step, guides them through the process of learning. I would think theoretically that those type of feedback will be much more beneficial for learning than feedback that just says right or wrong, or you got 6 out of 10. So I totally agree with you. But what you are seeing here in this meta-analysis, I'm trying to see the feedback or no feedback effect. Let me go there so that I can actually see the moderating effects, the effects of feedback or not. I don't think there's differential effects whether there's feedback. When there's no feedback, practice tests are useful, 0.6. And when there's feedback, practice tests is even more useful, 0.63. Um, Across 119 studies. So I think what you're seeing here is the dominant effect of practice testing that in the sense that this is already effective. And when you add feedback to it, it's a little bit more effective, even much more effective. But even if you do not provide, such strategic, robust feedback, is still effective, which I think is something that is good. So I would think that the type of feedback that you propose there will really, really be very, very helpful. And the results did not contradict that. The only thing is just that whether you provide that type of extensive feedback or not, practice testing is still very effective.
Yeah, it reminds me of if any of you watch Jeopardy, you know that Ken Jennings is the host who took over for Alex Trebek. And one of the things that Ken does and is able to do much more so than anybody else who would host is that if a person answers a question, or I'm sorry, questions an answer incorrectly, he can stop and say, no, you're thinking of this over here. That's not quite right. That person did this, whereas this is the correct answer, and this is why. Not many people can do that, but that's the type of feedback that's needed in addition to just saying, oh yeah, you're wrong, and here's the right answer. Most students, if they're struggling with math or problem solving or something like that, they want to know, where did I go wrong? At what point did I take a misstep? And how can I learn to not make that misstep next time? So Mary is a strong believer, Shola, in the power of qualitative data. And I've tried to convince her that qualitative data has no place in our society, and we should only be interested in numbers and numbers only. So just kidding, just kidding. No, that's great.
Yeah.
Anybody else have any questions? Otherwise, I'm going to dominate the entire time here.
So Dan, I was monitoring the chat window, and there's a discussion around what we call the transfer appropriate processing, which is this idea that we test our students in the same format. We deploy or administer practice tests in the same format that we intend to administer the actual test, the real test. That is very, very important. And the same thing goes for what Dan said here, that I would make sure that the students are able to practice with an iPad if they are being tested with an iPad. That is transfer appropriate processing. It's very important that we are testing students, we are putting them into this practice testing spaces which mirror the actual testing spaces in which they will operate. So same goes for laptop too.
Thank you, Shola. Rebecca, you have your hand up.
Yes, I was curious if during your meta-analysis, if it showed that there was, like I would know that some teachers are going to embed this and it's going to be great, but we also know some teachers only want to use test as assessment. And so was there anywhere that students could start to test themselves and that was successful through any kind of extracurricular program or study class or anything like that where it wasn't embedded, but it could still be used to help the kids?
If I thank you so very much, Rebecca. If I get your question very well, you are asking if in a meta-analysis there were studies whereby students actually self-tested themselves to sort of assess where they are, and they use the feedback there to sort of study or prepare for the final test. I mean, as long as that is reported, because we were very particular about picking studies whereby you have the practice test that is captured, then you also have the actual test. So if it is recorded, yes, we included those. But if it is not recorded or that was not our students were not asked, and it was not there was no data for us to analyze, then we excluded those type of studies. But you're right that even when teachers are now asking students to self-test, I mean, my daughter, I have a daughter in the PhD program at UW in engineering. Our undergraduate, even up to a master's degree, she uses these cards. I mean, she will write something and then turn to the back and write the answer to that question. She still used it up to 2 years ago when she was in the master's program. So did the teacher ask them to use it? No. But that's our own way of self-testing or self-practice testing, deploying practice testing, so that she could see, oh, I forgot this. I think I need to study this chapter very well. So that would be an answer to your question. There may have been those studies, but if they were not explicitly reported and we did not have data, we excluded those.
Shola, I want to be respectful of your time. We have about 5 minutes remaining. I just want to ask you kind of one final question. And as you know, this is a master's level course, but we have several students in here, in my opinion, that could go on and do PhD level work. And I usually try to have a guest in here where I have them talk a little bit about their journey and what it was like for them to go on and get the PhD, because I want to try to encourage some of these students, if they have the desire to go on. Your path to getting a PhD was obviously much different than mine, right? We all face, challenges, barriers, hurdles, things like that. But I'm wondering if you could talk just a little bit about what kind of got you started in terms of, hey, maybe I should go get a PhD and do educational research and work in higher education.
Hmm. That's a really interesting question, Dan. For me, you may remember that John Nesbitt and Phil Winnie were my advisors in graduate school for my master's degree. So these were very, very good scholars. I mean, what John did was to ask me, which I really wanted to do, to take a course, a PhD level course, even in my master's degree. This was a motivation course, and I think I took a research design, upper level research design course. But those two courses, I studied self-regulated learning, I studied sociocognitive theory, different flavors of both cognitive and motivational lenses. Those actually inspired me. I mean, coming out of those two PhD level courses, I was like, wow, this is what I want to do, because I was actually able to put some of those things to work during my master's degree time. I was, in terms of how to study strategies, motivation. I saw how I could inspire students, inspire people, whether I'm working in a company or in a university. So those were practical, even though theoretical, but I could see the practical implications of these very robust educational psychological principles and theories. And that drew me to the PhD program. That, wow, if I can just be well equipped, learning more of this, I will be a better person in life. So that was what drew me. There might be many other things that draw students. I like my advisor too, John Nesby, as well as Phil Winnie. These were really, really good scholars. Phil Winnie was Albert Bandura's student at Stanford. So he had come out of the social cognitive theoretical movement, particularly self-regulated learning with Brad Zimmerman. They were both colleagues. And Dale Shong, whom you know too. So yes, Phil Winnie and Simon Fraser Babandura, yes, was his advisor, was his mentor at Stanford. And among his peers were Zimmerman and Dale Shong. So this way, I mean, just reading about these people and seeing these people right in front of me, then I would go to conferences even as a master's student, and they Phil provided me the space to interact with these renowned scholars. That was what I needed. I felt like, wow, I felt drawn to the PhD program. I wanted to seek out more knowledge. I wanted to do something tangible for this world and leave a legacy. And that drew me to the PhD program. And I have never regretted. And I have actually used the PhD knowledge and research design knowledge in many other things in life. I would have been a recipient of close to $20 million over the last 16 years on mostly National Science Foundation grants, working with people in engineering who do not know how to do research design. And they almost always have me on their grant. And I'm like, no, we have to think about threats to the validity of causal inferencing. We cannot infer that this tool, that this engineering tool you built is better because of this threat. We didn't know this. I'm a co-PI on many of those National Science Foundation engineering and science projects. Again, because of the solid, robust educational psychological training at the PhD level.
Thank you, Shola. I think your experience is very similar to mine. You got hooked somewhere along the way, so to speak, and once you got hooked, you would probably do much of what you do for free. We don't really do it for the money. We do it because it becomes a passion, and that's what I'm trying to introduce to some of these students that if that can be a passion, it can be a very rewarding experience. I want to give you a chance to say goodbye and exit because I asked you for 30 minutes and you gave us great 30 minutes. Nice to see you, my friend. I hope to see you in Los Angeles in 2 months at the AERA conference.
Always good seeing you, Dan, and to Dan's students. You have a fantastic researcher and a leader in our field teaching you. And you probably, maybe he has not asked you to read many of his papers, but try and look out for Dan Robinson's papers. Um, Excellent research. You have him right there. Get hold of him, let him be inspired by his work, and you will never regret that. Thank you so very much for coming out to listen to me today, and hope our paths will cross sometime again. Thank you so
Okay.
much.
Thank you,
All right.
Shola. Have a good evening. Take care.